Hello, welcome back to How to Make a Game in Unity for Beginners. My name is Dustin, and last time what we did is we created this death pit object. All it is, it's just a simple cube, just like that we put below our ground. That way, if our player falls off of um, our ground, it it will won't it won't continue to fall forever. Um, it'll basically kill off the player and restart our level. So what I want to do now is, first off, I just want to explain real quick why I used a separate game object for this, because I could have easily just set it so that if our player falls off the ground itself and our player is below our ground object, then he will die. But the reason I didn't do that is, let's say hypothetically we wanted to have a separate platform or something like that. We can also change the height of these platforms, and if we set it to the ground here, as soon as our player tries to jump off of our platform or move to a different height of a ground level, it would kill off the player, and that's not quite what we want. So I just made it a separate object right here. That way we can control where we want it, how far down we want it. We can basically create our level however we want. So that's why I did it that way. Um, but so today I want to fix another bug that I found with our enemy object. And this is a really simple fix, but you may have noticed already that if we hit play and we go towards our enemy, you can see that he um, just phases through our little object here, our barricade, and that's not necessarily what we want. I mean, maybe you want want your game to be that way, but I personally don't. I mean, I guess I could use it for certain instances, but I don't. In what I'm doing here, I don't want to do that. So I'm just gonna go on to our enemy, and since we created a prefab of this enemy, I want to actually make the change on the enemy prefab. But you'll so the so the reason why it's phasing through is because if you actually look at our player, we added this rigid body component to it, and that component just basically allows our player to have physics and be able to interact with the world. So I want to basically do the same thing with our enemy here. Um, so I'm just going to go onto our enemy prefab. I'm just going to double click on the prefab itself, and it'll open up this prefab editor. Um, and if I scroll down to the bottom, just click add component, and I want to add rigid body to our enemy. And perfect, that's exactly what I want to do. So if I go ahead and hit play, and if I move a little closer to our enemy, you'll notice he gets stopped by our barricade. But we're going to have an issue here in just a second. As soon as we start moving away, or even just staying there, you'll notice that our enemy fell over. That's the reason that is because if you look on our player once again, what we did for our player is we froze the rotation on all of the axes. That way it can't like tip over or something like that. So I want to do the same thing to the enemy. I'm going to open up the enemy prefab once again, and I'm just going to freeze the rotation on X, Y, and Z, and this will work just fine for what we're doing with the game object that we currently have. But if you, for instance, wanted it to have a more human-like look to it with face, arms, legs, whatever, you might want it to look at wherever it's going. So you wouldn't freeze the rotation on the y-axis. And but for what we're doing here, just as this simple little beginner's game, freezing all of the axes, that it's perfectly fine. So, and that should fix our falling over issue. So if we go ahead and hit play, get a little close to the enemy, and now he is stopped here, and he's not falling over anymore. Perfect, that is exactly what we want. So now, what I want to do as well, so now back to what I actually wanted to do this video for, is I want to give our players the ability to pause our game. Because as of right now, I mean, we can't pause, we can't stop what we're doing. So what I want to do is I want to go into our game manager script, and I want to create a new bool. So what we're going to do is we're going to say a private bool is paused, just like that. And this will check to see, or this will tell us whether or not our game is paused. So down here in our update function, underneath this last check, we're going to say, let's see, we're going to say if is paused, then what we want to do is we want to say time dot time scale equals 0. So actually I want to do this slightly different. So we're gonna say here, instead, we're gonna say if input dot get key down key code dot p for pause, and not is paused. So basically what we're saying is if the game is not paused and we press the key P, then we will set our time scale to 0. So let's go ahead and save that, go back into Unity and see how this works. So wait for it to compile, let's hit play, and it's going to be kind of hard to see so if we're not having this enemy kind of following us. So I'm just going to move a little bit closer to the enemy here so that he is currently following us. And while he's following, I'm just going to hit the P button. Perfect. So it just paused our game for us. So let's go ahead and hit P again, and oh geez, it is not unpausing. So let's fix that really quick. So get out of play mode and go back into our game manager script. And in our if check, we're gonna go to the bottom here and we're gonna say else if input dot get key down key code dot p, and our game is paused, then we want to set time scale, time scale back to 1, just like that. So now this isn't going to quite work the way that we want it to, now that I'm actually looking at this, and the reason it isn't going to work is because, so our is paused is automatically set to false. So when we start our game, it's already not paused. So when we hit the P key, we're setting our time scale to 0, but we're not setting is paused to true. So I just want to do that really quick. So we're going to say is paused is equal to true. And then I want to do the same thing when we're unpausing the game. I want to say is paused is equal to false. Just like that. So if we go ahead and save that, go back into Unity, wait for it to compile, and hit play. Now we have the ability to pause the game. So if we let our enemy follow us, let's see, hit the P button, and we can no longer move. Let's hit the P button one more time. Oh, geez. I do not know what's going on there. Let's see, what just happened there? So what's going on is, even though our time scale is paused, if we're still pushing our move buttons here, it's still adding that force. So I'm hitting the right button a few times, and then I'm just going to unpause it, and you'll see that he just kind of shoots off to the side. That is not what we want. So let's go ahead and fix that really quick. And the way we can do that is if we go back into our scripts, go to our player controller script, and up here, I just want to wrap all of this here into an if check. Actually, I want to put this in here as well. I want to put everything in here inside of an if check. And we're going to say if the GM, oh, do we have a reference to our game manager in here? We do not have a reference to our game manager in here. So let's create a reference to our game manager. So we're going to say private game manager, what do we call it? The GM. And on start, we are going to say the GM is equal to find object of type game manager. And now we're referencing the game manager. So in here, I want to say if the game manager dot is paused. Oh, you know something? Also in the game manager, we set that to private, didn't we? Let's set that to public so that we can use it in our player controller. So the game manager, back in our player controller, the game manager dot is paused. And then I'm just going to take all of this here. I'm going to cut it out and paste it into here. And I think that should do it. So, no, we want to say that if it is not paused. So right before we say the GM, we're going to put an exclamation point saying if the game manager is not paused. And now we're going to save it. So I think that should fix our issue there. So let's go ahead and go back into Unity, wait for it to compile, hit play, and so the game is not paused, so we're able to move around, which is good. So now if we hit our pause button, I'm gonna hit our movement button a few times and then unpause it. Look at that. Our game, we no longer just kind of shoot off in a random direction. That is exactly what we want. So now if the game is not paused, our player will no longer try and add that force to move it around. And yeah, that's exactly what we want to do. So I think that's going to do it for this video. Thank you for watching. Please make sure to like, subscribe, comment down below, give me suggestions on what you want to see in the video. But other than that, I will see you next time.